And I want to say thank you very much to the team at Urbana. It's a real pleasure to be here today. And frankly, it's amazing to see all of the different incredible companies and to be a part of such an esteemed group of individuals running some pretty fantastic companies. Today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about Lyceum Health. Lyceum Health is not a financial institution, as you probably gathered. We are an organization, however, that is really focused on helping with the business of healthcare and improving the business of healthcare, which is sort of the thread, I think, as it relates to finance and business. And what I'd like to do, first of all, there's the disclaimer, Liz. What I'd like to do is I'd like to just share with you the focus of the business and tell you a little bit about our story. We are really in the area of medical, specialty medical health. We are focused on helping to make it such that people who have health conditions, specialty care required health conditions, are able to access that particular medication, those services, in a way that they are not otherwise able to access. Over the course of the last decade, as some of you may know, there has been an incredible amount of innovation in the area of specialty medications. Now, we're talking about medications that are worth tens of thousands of dollars per patient per year. And as you can imagine, there are barriers associated with getting to those medications in a lot of cases, particularly in the United States. So what we have done and what we are doing is really focused on getting the administration and the costs associated with patients not being able to access that care out of the system. Now, the business of specialty medications is really big business, and particularly in the United States. In the US, over $320 billion a year, or 55% of all expenditures on medications, is on specialty meds. Psoriasis, atopic dermatitis, MS, oncology drugs. These particular medications are now the lion's share of the expenditures in medicine. And from that perspective, what's happening is that these large organizations that produce these medications, pharmaceutical companies, are spending a tremendous amount of money, as well as medical clinics, on the services required to get the medications to patients. That includes things like services to educate the patients, services to be able to distribute the data from patients, from EMRs, EHRs, to insurers, and so on. And there are incredible inefficiencies in these particular methodologies, these ways of doing things. So what we're talking about here is approximately 12.5% of the total expenditures are really on this serviceable, of the distribution and support of these specialty drugs. And so when we look at our market, what we're talking here is that about $41.6 billion are spent on these distribution and support services. Now, the way we're looking at it today, we're reasonably early. We're about 2 or 2.5 years into our launch of our services into Canada and the United States. We're looking at the real market that we're focusing on today in dermatology as about $2.5 billion. So what's the fundamental issue that we are focused on as an organization? We're focused on this issue of really getting the pinch point associated with patients being able to receive these medications from the situation where it is today, which is very labor-based, very focused on faxes and focused on issues that are related to insufficient medical records, and we're driving those inefficiencies out. And what's happening is that more and more patients are needing these medications. We've got a lot of innovation in the specialty care area, and with the physicians that are really required to do a lot of this administration, they are time-strapped. And so what we are doing is we are now looking at addressing this particular issue and reducing the administration from that perspective. So let me tell you about our solution. We are a SaaS, so software as a service business. We have two component parts to our product. The first, and they are interconnected. The first component is related to the our RX Nexus element. It is a product that handles the administration for our clinics, and it's all at the point of care. The second component of our products are the MyRx Path product, and this really is all about helping to advance patients' journey so that they stay on the medication once they've been prescribed it. Now, what makes us unique as a company is that the distribution of our software and our services is being pushed into a really proprietary network of clinician users. Imagine, if you will, you have electronic medical records that are being used by physicians and by clinics to collect all sorts of data. You've got specialty pharmacies and you've got pharmaceutical companies that are required to get information to be able to get patients certain types of programs, bridging programs, programs that are going to give them free drug. There's nothing in between to help the clinics to efficiently collect the information and get it out to these parties. So our clinicians that are now adopting our services are really doing so in a proprietary way. And it's that first-to-market method that is allowing us to be able to generate competitive advantage. The other piece is in the MyRx Path product, what we have is we have a number of proprietary behavioral algorithms that are used to be able to keep patients engaged in the technology. We have approximately 85% engagement over the longer term with our patients because our system is white labeled to the physicians' offices. And our customers today are the clinics that are in the U.S. primarily, as well as pharmaceutical companies who contribute to the software to be able to make it much more efficient over time. But there's optionality here because we also see that specialty pharmacy is going to be interested in our products, as well as health insurers will be quite interested in the data that we have. So for those of you who are not overly familiar with healthcare and healthcare delivery and the business of healthcare, I'm going to give you a specific case study, which may be helpful. So imagine, if you will, in dermatology, which is where we are starting, you have a patient that comes in who has psoriasis, okay, moderate to severe psoriasis. And this is a disease which is visible and can cause real issues when it comes to patients' quality of life. And in order to be able to get that patient some of these life-changing drugs, these expensive life-changing drugs, this enormous circle of activity needs to occur at the clinic level. You have specialty pharmacies, you have various types of programs, you have individuals from the pharma industry all bombarding you as a clinic for information to be able to justify why you would get the patient on this particular product. And given the fact that, of course, you've got a lot more patients that are needing these products, and you have staffing, which oftentimes is, there's a lot of pressure on that staff because of the fact that these administration tasks are not particularly fun to do, you end up with a lot of back and forth, a lot of risk, a lot of time that is not reimbursable as a physician, and ultimately, it's all that needs to happen in order to be able to get just to the point where the patient is covered on these particular drugs. And what we're doing is really providing a single point of contact. We're taking all of that administration out, and we are a single point of contact between the decision-making process, getting to the coverage, getting that patient coverage, to be able to get patients on drug faster and to be able to help keep them on that drug over time. So to really be specific on how our product works and what it does, we have, for our medical clinic customers, 4 modules related to making it faster to enroll patients and programs to get them access to these drugs, all the way through to managing the patient's journey over time. And as you can see, what happens is, rather than a clinic's staff member, a medical assistant, having to spend time doing paperwork, filling things out, sending things over to some of these programs by fax, what we're doing is we're providing devices into the medical clinics, a tablet, and our software, our system handles the entire process from start to finish. I don't know if any of you had the opportunity or the difficulty actually of traveling during COVID, but as I did, what ended up happening was you would find that there were COVID tests that you could take coming back to Canada where there was a remote individual to be able to provide you with a service of getting the help that you needed to have those particular tests completed. This system is quite similar to that, and in many ways it was the impetus for our decision to go this route, because we now have asynchronous monitored systems that go into these physicians' offices, allowing all of this administration to happen extremely quickly, very efficiently. And then what happens is that record is there as patients cycle potentially from one drug to another, and it really reduces all of this administration and creates a whole lot of information that's available for lots of different purposes down the road. So that's essentially what the medical clinics are purchasing from us now. And then as the distribution of our software generated in the United States ends up becoming greater and greater over time, what we have is we have opportunities for the pharmaceutical industries, the manufacturers of these products, to be able to benefit from our system. So in this particular case, as I mentioned, access is key. It's really important. All of these forms and so on that are needed to be filled out by these physicians currently are literally handed to the clinics in paper form, requiring them to fill these things out by hand. We're digitizing all of these. We're making the enrollment very, very swift, and the pharmaceutical companies that participate in our system will become the product of choice in their class of therapy from the physician's perspective for that reason. Additionally, we have reach out to patients, and we have the ability to provide insights to the industry as it relates to what's going on in the clinics and where the opportunities and gaps lie. So to be specific here, you can sort of see how in each of the cases, the programs are provided information automatically populated, and it also improves all sorts of information as it relates to distributing kinds of data and information that they want the clinics to have. So some of you may ask, well, why now? And what's causing us at Lyceum to really be excited about this? And it's really the confluence of two things. The first is, as I mentioned, the growth in specialty treatments, the idea that biologics are almost double-digit growth for the last 10 years, and all the way through to 2030 are expected to be nearly 10% compound growth over the course of that period of time. But the other piece, which I think is equally important, is that the post-pandemic behavior, which has been getting end users used to the idea of remote services and digital services, is now where it's at an all-time high, and it's remaining so. So these two things together are really allowing us to take advantage of opportunity to be able to do some great things for clinics, for pharmaceutical companies, and for patients. So as I mentioned, we've been at it for about 2.5 years, and we've seen some really nice adoption from some pretty significant organizations. One of the things that being a part of the Urbana Corporation group has allowed us to do is advance our strategy into the United States. We have recurring programs with huge companies like Pfizer and Roche. We also have programs with drug distributor McKesson, which some of you may have heard of. And in the US, we are now starting to really move from the west to the east, where we have private clinics, multi-unit private clinics that have started to adopt our program. And we're now approaching over 50 clinics where we just started to advance our US strategy in August. So we've started to really see the adoption grow very quickly, and expect to be moving along as quickly as we possibly can, as we get more and more of these providers understanding how they can save time and make more money and see more patients. So from the perspective of who else might be doing this in the marketplace, we are looking at the organizations that, as I mentioned, are in sort of drug distribution and services for patients and clinics. The organizations that are in this space now are massive companies that really have not been innovating at the point of care, but really innovating at the point of pharmacy, or potentially in the distribution aspect of healthcare and delivery. So the things that differentiate us are the fact that we're focused on the specialty provider with our technology. And then the second piece is that we have tentacles signals into their patient population. Our system is white labeled to their clinic and their practice, which allows us to be able to generate an incredible amount of engagement, which I mentioned earlier, and allows us as a company to be able to have a really sticky relationship with the clinics that are using our system. So in short, we really are the only point of care solution that is helping these specialists, and we're helping them see more patients and at a lower cost than they are currently able to do so when prescribing these types of treatments. So a little bit about our revenue model. It's a recurring annual subscription-based model, which is for each of our 3 products, focused on several modules that are available to each of our clients. As I mentioned with the RxNexus product, we have 2 customers that are first the clinics themselves. That's where we're starting, getting as much distribution as we possibly can, as quickly as we can, starting in dermatology. And then from there, we have a number of pharmaceutical companies who've already decided that they want to become part of our program and to be able to reach the clinics that we're engaging and the patients that they have as well. And then from the MyRxPath perspective, similarly, it is really those multi-year subscriptions that we are engaging in, and we are able to have those particular programs over time reach tens of thousands of patients. By way of a KPI, in one of our programs, the Roche program, we have reached over 50,000 patients currently and over 400 clinics. So we're really starting to see some nice traction there. A key strategy for us is our medical advisory team. And so just to give you an example of a few of the key individuals who are helping to get us the penetration and advance our US strategy, we have individuals really across the United States. And as I mentioned, we're starting in dermatology. One of our key advisors is actually the incoming president for the American Academy of Dermatology. And critically, we have a management team that is experienced and has a myriad of abilities to be able to get our company and our products to the next level and get the distribution and execute the way we want to. We have 2 of our members actually have worked previously at McKesson. I brought them on intentionally because of the fact that they, I believe, will be instrumental in taking the business to that next level, to be able to generate not only the distribution and execute on our strategies, but also to look to how we're going to monetize the business going forward. So, in summary, Lyceum Health, we're located here in Toronto. We are an organization that is really ready to scale with a SaaS model. We have fantastic interconnected solutions that are sticky, that have some proprietary components to them, with key customers that have already started to take up our solution. And with that in mind, I will be happy to take some questions. Thank you. Yes?
Brendan, you have the microphone.
Yeah, but I like Beth better.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Brendan. Are you doing the ladies first then? Is that it? No.
Thank you. I just have a question with regard to your revenue model and how you define a clinic. So I'll give you an example. If we think about the U.S., there are a number of very small clinics, but with nationwide distribution, like in CVS and in Walmart. Does that form part of the revenue model, or are you talking about clinics that are more not in drugstores? Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So CVS and Walmart are primary care clinics. So that's a great question. To distinguish between that and the specialty market, think about Kaiser Permanente. Think about the large multidisciplinary specialty clinics that would have dermatologists, rheumatologists, neurologists in there. We are going to be going there eventually, but to give you context, the simplest and easiest way to penetrate the US market is with independently owned private practices. So, in the US versus say in Canada, you'll find individuals who will own dozens of clinic locations with multiple providers in each of those clinics. And that is how we define our market from the perspective of how we generate revenue with those particular clinics. Yeah. Oh, my pleasure. Mr. Caldwell.
George, to try to simplify it, for me at any rate, okay, I'm a doctor in the States, and I have a patient who has psoriasis or something, and the treatments, the drugs, whatever, are going to cost, let's say, $10,000 a month, whatever, a big number. So my understanding is I have to somehow get approval of their HMO, their health provider, or their insurance company for this expensive treatment before the patient gets that treatment. Am I correct in that
That's
part?
absolutely right, yeah.
So for me to justify putting this patient on a $10,000 a month regime, I have to validate that. And is that where you come in? I push a key and I say it's psoriasis, da-da-da-da-da, and you give me the validation, the lab tests, the results, the efficacy of this drug, which I just then put in an envelope or whatever, email on to the insurance company, and they say yes or no, and you make it far harder for them to say no because I have all this backup data. Is that one of your core business models?
That's it in a nutshell. So to take it to a sort of step back to your point about a psoriasis patient, to get on a sophisticated biologic that will clear that psoriasis up 95%, you will have to have failed a number of treatments in advance before your insurance company will allow you to get onto that treatment. Okay, and the data that has to come from the EHR that will substantiate that needs to be collected and put into a number of forms, and then, believe it or not, faxed out to two different parties, one to the insurance company, and then one to the pharmaceutical industry. And so right now, all of that labor, all of that intense work is falling on the clinics to do that job. And it's costing them, hours per patient to do. And so in order to be able to unclog that issue of all that time, collecting all of that data and substantiating the need for the drug, we're putting a system into the hands of the clinic that allows for the collection of that information directly from the electronic medical records into a central system and a source that then automatically gets the information to these different parties. And a lot of times patients will need a different drug later on because of response goes down or they have some sort of a side effect. And so all that information is in there still. So it allows for the next time around the patient's information to be collected even more quickly than it was the first time. And while that's going on currently inside of a physician's office with a medical assistant who the physician is paying, $30 an hour to, instead of that, now they've got a system that's going to be a fraction of that cost to allow for us to take that burden off of them, which makes it so the clinic can see more patients. That's money for them, that's revenue. And then also to reduce their cost because they can reallocate or have some of that labor, reduced through attrition.
So you
Mr.
work
Caldwell.
with the pharmaceutical companies, the insurance companies, the doctors and the clinics, which actually look after and make the patients' lives way better. Where in all that, you have several different parts of your business model. Where does the money really, really come from? And why do you make it worth it for that group to pay as much as they do?
Yeah, well, let's go back to the two core customers that we have today. The first are clinics, which are paying us in order to be able to have our system put into their clinics as sort of middleware between what their current electronic health records are doing and what it is that some of the other services that they receive from pharmacy are providing to them. So they pay us a monthly amount every month in order to be able to, on a per provider basis, to be able to have access to our system. That is generating approximately 50% of the revenue that we anticipate, and the other 50% of the revenue will come from the pharmaceutical industry that is going to really be interested in and is interested in making sure that they can keep their information, their forms and so on, easily accessible through our system, because that fundamentally makes it even faster for the clinics to function and reduces their costs further. So if you're not in our system as a pharma company, then what ends up happening is you're not one of those particular drugs of choice.
George, you said it's a white label product, which I get, but is there, if I go into clinic A for a dermatological treatment, psoriasis, whatever, and you've migrated up into rheumatoid or other types of, and I end up at another clinic, I guess the first question is, if they put my name into their system, does it automatically populate just regardless? So there's no reason to be able to label it or do any of that sort of stuff?
So when I say white label, what I mean is if you show up and let's say Dr. Jones is your physician, you're going to see Dr. Jones's clinic powered by Lyceum. And as an individual, it's a really great question, actually. If you're a person who has psoriasis, there's a 30% chance you may end up with psoriatic arthritis, which is another disease area. And so our system is built such the way that those particular patients are in single sign-on, able to access their records, and the clinics are able to access the records individually and as needed, firewalled, of course, for data security and privacy.
So I would know that I am all my data is up on Lyceum.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a great question. Yeah.
So I don't know how to answer this in the form of a question, so I'll just state it as a statement. What I understand and what I love about what you do is that you're taking the biggest, fastest growing, most lucrative part of the pharmaceutical business and weaponizing it, there's got to be a better word, in such a way that it makes it so easy for the doctors to upload the patients, gets the patients the treatment faster. And the kicker that you haven't guaranteed me just yet, but I'm hoping, because these things are $5,000, $10,000, $50,000 a year treatments, as you're able to get more patients on it, it'll actually bring the cost down over time of these specialty treatments. And what was high-tech, high-end, only available exclusive medicines will actually become more, what's the word we're using today, Matt? Democratized.
Well, I was about to say an overused term, democratized. And I'd rather use that than weaponized, frankly. But when it comes to access and cost, right, these are very complex issues, right? And ultimately, we've seen in the marketplace, particularly in specialty pharmaceuticals, where companies have really pushed the envelope and been punished for pushing the envelope too far. There's a recent example in Alzheimer's where that was the case. And so, I think really what's happening here is providing the data and the ability for physicians to quickly, easily, and continuously get the results that are needed to get patients access through coverage is what we are doing. So tangibly, in the area of psoriasis or atopic dermatitis, which is really severe eczema, you would find that the physicians are able to upload the images of the improvement of the patients, which makes it much more likely that the insurers will continue to cover the drug. So I think the concept of democratization is key here, because really it's difficult for some individuals based on socioeconomics to express and advocate for themselves. And so our system is in a lot of ways allowing that to happen.
George, another question. With the drug companies being your partners, I'm going to make an assumption that psoriasis has 4 or 5 different treatment avenues from
16, actually.
Okay, from presumably something like 4 to 16 manufacturers. Does the fact that you're connected with Roche or Pfizer or whomever else limit the clinic's ability to prescribe a treatment that is not with those guys?
Oh, what a great question. So conflict is something you have to be very careful about in medicine, because physicians really need to be able to make decisions independently and prescribe the drugs that are most important, that they believe are most important for patients. Pharmaceutical industry has nothing to do with the development of our system. They are completely at arm's length, and anything that they provide to us has nothing to do with the fundamental aspect of the system, data collection, any of that. It's completely independent. Or the prescriptions themselves, yeah. In fact, in many ways, we're doing the opposite. We're enabling the physicians to see the kind of information and get the patients the right drug, because they have a greater potential to do so with the information that we're collecting for them faster.